Great. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Caucus. If I could have our legislative director read through who is here and staff. We'll get started.
Adams, Anane. He was here. Ballerin. Here. Brody, Farrell.
Here.
Flynn, Hoey.
Present.
Johnson, Jones.
Present.
Keegan.
Here.
Lumpkin.
Present.
Powell, Robinson. Was here. Williamson.
Present.
Zamer.
Here.
8 currently present. Believe 2 members outstanding. We're also joined by Council President Kelly Kimbrough, City Clerk Shaniqua Jackson, Research Council Robert Winter, Legislative Director Brian Jimenez, and Junior Legislative Aide Carly Johnson.
Thank you so much. So we're going to run through the agenda. In local laws held, we have voting on local law D, but the Human Rights and Human Resources Committee meeting is postponed. So if that does not pass through committee, we'll bring that up at a future committee meeting or a future council meeting. In ordinances introduced, we have Councilmember Adams ordinance 43126. That is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of apportioned parcels. That will go to planning. We also have Councilmember Ballerin's ordinance 53126, which is the affordable housing requirement. That will go to planning. Do you want to say anything on that, Councilmember Ballerin?
Thank you, President Pro Temp. This was something that took quite a bit of time to get here, and I look forward to the discussion in Planning Committee.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for your continued work on that. We have, in ordinances held, we're voting on ordinance 12126. I'm assuming the discussion was not March 3rd because that has not yet happened. Oh, pending discussion. Got it. Right. We're looking. Isn't that after Monday's meeting? That's what I thought. That's why I was little.
The meeting's on Thursday. Purim is on Monday.
Oh. Okay. Megan, we were in the same space. So that once that passes through committee, we'll be voting on that. Then with resolutions introduced, we'll be introducing and voting on Resolution 133126, commemorating Women's History Month. We'll check before the meeting, but I know all of the women on the council are co-sponsors. I'm assuming that this will go to a voice vote, but we'll confirm it when there's more members here on the Thursday meeting. And just a note, for approval of minutes from previous meetings, we will be voting on the February 19th minutes that was sent out. One of the things that we wanted to discuss tonight was with Alyssa moving on, we do have a position opening within our staff. And just wanted to have a bit of a discussion with members to see if there were some different things that they were hoping to get from staff that was somewhat different. In the past, Councilmember Conti had always encouraged us to have a finance-focused person. We've had requests for somebody that has more experience with communications. There's a lot of potential things. Our staffing levels will remain the same, so this is not something to necessarily say, unfortunately, that they will be picking up writing letters for you or doing individual things. We still have to do that as members, but as a whole, as a council, We thought it would be a good idea on leadership to see if members had any input. We can go out with the same exact, we can say we want the same position that we have open, but we can also potentially go out for a different position. So I just wanted to open that up. If anybody had any thoughts, ideas, this could be new members or existing members. Councilmember Robinson.
Thank you. We totally understand that it's three different branches of government. We got a legislative branch. And I respect leadership bringing this conversation to the full body. And my concern are what upsets me is that why wasn't we afforded the same opportunity for discussion before leadership decided to put a position that was in our budget already over to the mayor's office? It wasn't no discussion with new members or the full body that, hey, we have this violence coordinating position open. How do we want to proceed with this? You know what I'm saying? Seeing that we are a legislative body and it's already allocated in our budget, and we can react on this and work hand in hand with the mayor's office and what they got coming down the pipe. To be in a meeting today and hear that, you know what I'm saying, leadership have already gave the administrative branch, you know what I'm saying, the power to take a position that was allocated in our budget and move it over to the mayor's office. That was disheartening.
Councilmember Robinson, we haven't moved there has been no movement on the violence prevention.
Not even the movement. I'm just talking about the discussion. Just like you sit here and you give us the discussion or give us the opportunity to discuss what's happening with a position that needs to be filled that's in our budget. New council members, we have ideals. You know what I'm saying? Our communities is affected the most by this violence. So that's the only thing I'm saying is, even though it wasn't voted on, then I think that the mayor's office spoke out of turn by saying that it was already, you know what I'm saying, I'm being moving over to her office.
I'm not sure where you heard that, but the discussion that leadership has had is that would be a discussion within the committee structure. We actually wanted the Public Safety Committee, before there was any legislation, to discuss the entire violence prevention coordinator, especially in light of going to Baltimore. And that, so there is a discussion that we hope to have on that. I'm not sure. As far as I know, there isn't anything planned. The mayor's office has shown an interest in that. And we respect that, but we do think that there needs to be a fuller discussion. So as far as I know, unless there's been discussions that I'm not aware of, but there is no plan yet. And there will be, we've talked to Councilmember Hoey about having, before there's any legislation, because there were different pieces of legislation discussed and different potential iterations. We do want to support the mayor in what she's doing with the concept of like looking at Baltimore, doing that. But to your point, it does need to be a broader discussion with council members.
Thank you for the clarification.
Councilmember Keegan, I believe you had your hand up about the staffing of the council.
I did. First, I just want to say that I truly appreciate Brian's work on behalf of the council in terms of the budget. But I am curious about the possible applications of shifting to a budget analyst position, both that would help facilitate our ability to provide better analysis and more nimbleness with regards to the city budget, but also the state and the federal budget, and how those three sort of fiscal entities are interplaying and impacting the city rather than being heavily reliant upon the city's budget director for information. And this is nothing against you, Brian, because you are fantastic and phenomenal. But I know that Richard had shot an email out to the council, and I wanted to hear everybody else's thoughts about that particular proposition.
Councilmember Zamer?
I didn't know if you were going to respond to Megan. I have a different thought.
If anybody has any, I think right now we can just share different ideas
Okay.
on the topic. So if you want to offer something else, you can.
Sure. I would just ask that leadership, when you're figuring out our staffing, gets input. I'm not saying that you haven't already, but I just want to reinforce that you get input from our current staff, our city clerk, and our deputy city clerk, to see sort of what pieces might be missing and where they need support.
We definitely have, and this is something we've actually asked Brian to, and he actually is very excited about it, about potentially looking at different options of a slight restructure to just be more efficient in all of our different offices and provide the services that we need, and making sure that we're not too much on staff. Every office has a different demand, so I always want to make sure that we're being aware of the clerk, because the clerk has to be here sometimes before 9 a.m. Every day, and they're continually providing very public-facing services. And council staff often has to be here later. So making sure that we're not being too much on the clerk's office, which this is not to say that the clerk's office has not done an incredible job. They have. And we're incredibly lucky to have Shaniqua Jackson as our clerk. But I think that we also have to be very careful with the amount of pressure that we're putting on people. And if it's something that, if a restructure can happen where we can allow people to not be in City Hall 24/7, because I'm convinced that Shaniqua actually has a secret bed back there that she just stays in. But
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Councilmember Robinson?
Thank you. And, I concur with my colleague. We have 15 members, right? And we overwhelmed, every council member need attention with possibly drawing legislation, doing research, and we need an aide there to assist us. We need somebody there that's going to be able to take care, things that would lessen the burden so we can do our work in the community. So I do feel if the restructuring is to happen, that it should be the full body included within this discussion.
Thank you, Councilmember Robinson. Does anybody else have any interest?
Can I speak? Yeah, and leadership before, we've had the discussions about maybe the budget piece being a contracted service. I mean, I've had those conversations with Richard. I mean, you've talked about maybe doing something like that. I mean, I don't know. So we're looking for a legislative aide with a budget background. Is that kind of what we're doing here? Because I do believe we need.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, it is something that we'd have to look at the title that we have, things like that, and the pay scale that Alyssa was, see what our options are within that pay scale. Obviously, we know that the budget is tight, so any changes could be, but it's also entirely possible that we could change the title and have a slightly different pay scale, but not have a budget hit because of where or other junior legislative aid was at that time. So just we'd have to look into it basically to kind of see where things are. Obviously, the desire is not to have any budget impact with this. But it's possible just using a different title or something like that can fit, or we can use the same one and tweak things slightly. It was more of an idea to get, and I see what people were interested in. When Brian and I were talking about it, where he even brought up the idea, which I thought was somewhat genius. It might need to be a future thing, but the PEG board coordinator, that is a part-time position, looking into potentially making that a full-time position, actually utilizing it a lot more. It has a lot of equipment and things like that, and we could use more of a communications side too, but that would have to be obviously a future conversation when we look in terms of the budget. But another potential thing where we could flesh things out. But it seems like there is an interest in more of a budget bent focus thing. Councilmember Keegan?
I mean, don't just base it on me. I mean, I'm the finance chair, so of course I'm going to want to have lots of attention to what's happening. But I also do think that there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that are not as reliable right now, at least until we have another round of federal elections in 2028 and potential change in leadership. And so that's one of the reasons why I personally am interested, because I can't keep up with it all. I don't think the city can necessarily keep up with it all. And as things shift and impact the state of New York, so do things shift and impact the city to a certain extent.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And we can also send an email out. This is something we are looking to do sooner rather than later, but we also have a bit of time. So we can request at our next, maybe send an email out and get a little bit more feedback on things. I do want to be mindful of the dinner downstairs if anybody is interested in attending that. But does anybody have anything else that they'd like to bring up this evening? No. Yep. Go ahead, Councilman.
Yeah, I sent out to everybody, I did look into the dog poop problem in the city. And what I found out is, through Darius's office, there hasn't been any fines given out. And the fine is $250 is what he said. But the police chief said that if we want, we can concentrate animal control, who is responsible for handing out the fines in the area. One of the problems is, of course, you got to catch the dog in the act, and that's maybe why we have a law in the books that's kind of very difficult to enforce. So I just, if we can think about it, maybe there's some other way we can figure that out. But I just wanted to pass that along to everybody. Thank you.
And just as a follow-up with that, because enforcement's really hard with this, if you can't just see the person, you have to actually have proof of it. So even if it's something where you see the dog and the person and they just let it happen, if you don't have proof of it, which is the dog pooping, not just the dog there, it's just difficult to enforce. I know in a different municipality, there was somebody got really frustrated that actually paid for DNA testing on, they had to, it can get dramatic. But with Ring cameras, it's actually, I will say if you have a Ring camera, that can be used for it pretty effectively. So it's not outrageous to have it. A lot of people have those, but it is complicated to enforce.
If I might, it might make more sense to discuss another sort of public education campaign, an awareness campaign, the possibility of, can you have plastic bags, the dispensers that they have in parks, is the possibility of having those more available throughout the city, and maybe a campaign on buses and whatnot. So that's something that we could discuss.
So with that, and just a note, our leadership meeting with the mayor's office was not able to happen this week. Just snow and scheduling things, so no updates from that. And with that, I motion to adjourn, and
Motion adjourned.
I hope everyone has a great night. Thank you.